Hello everyone, in this presentation we're going to be talking about video production aesthetics and some of the camera shots and moves that you can employ to make your video projects more interesting and professional looking as well. We'll start by talking a little bit about the rule of thirds. This is a framing concept. Essentially it says if you hypothetically divide your screen into thirds, the points where the lines cross are the most aesthetically pleasing places to put your subjects in that field of view. You can see in the scene there on the right hand side, the two subjects are placed on those two vertical lines, and the horizon line is placed on the top sort of horizontal line, so it's well framed according to this principle of the rule of thirds. So that's something to keep in mind as you frame your scenes when you're creating videos. Placing a subject's eyes on the top horizontal line is another good technique. It provides adequate space or headroom. Placing a subject that's actually in motion on the left vertical line provides for adequate lead room into an open space. You wouldn't want to have that diver on the rightmost vertical line because it would look like he was going out of the scene of view, if you will. So anyone in motion should at least start on that leftmost vertical line to provide for that lead room. You can also frame with a background. You can use what they call converging lines, which draw an eye toward an object. In that scene there on the right-hand side, it shows the walkway and the fencing sort of converging toward the end point. If you had somebody you wanted to emphasize, putting them in the middle of that scene, it would clearly draw the eye toward the person in the middle of the walkway there. You can also look for opportunities to frame within a frame. As you see in that scene there at the bottom, you've got sort of an archaeological dig site, and since part of that site has been dug out, that provided a good opportunity to sort of frame the scene of view, if you will, and the eye would sort of be drawn toward the middle of that pit where a lot of the action is going on. The field of view is something. This refers to how much of a subject you can see in a given frame. There's two establishing shots that you can employ in your video projects. And an extreme long shot is as shown there in the left-hand image there at the bottom, very backed off of the subject. A long shot is still backed off of the subject, but not quite as far. Excuse me. The medium shot gives some detail of the surroundings while focusing on the subject, and that's what's shown there on the left-hand side. And the medium close-up is the most popular shot used in the video. Sort of a mixed shot. It shows a bit of a close-up of the person, but also a little bit of the background as well. Zoomed in a little bit further. The close-up is used to focus entirely on the subject's sort of their head area and shoulders. The extreme close-up, on the other hand, is used to highlight some very minute details of the subject's face, like a smile or a scream or a teary eye, something like that. So a lot of times when you see professional storyboards, they will have cues for the people who are operating cameras to to do extreme close-up or middle close-up, that kind of thing. You may wish to change your field of view by zooming in or out. Zooming can be used to show emphasis, like if a piano player is having a recital, you can zoom in on their hands. You should note, however, that professionals rarely zoom in their video projects, but they tend to take close-ups with a second camera and might edit that into the overall video at a later time. So zooming is not something that professionals use very widely. Points of view is another aesthetic concept to keep in mind. An objective camera refers to filming from a detached viewpoint. The viewer remains neutral observers. A lot of professional Hollywood films, like The Patriot that you see there, are filmed from an objective camera. These are contrasted with a subjective camera. There's been a lot of films come out recently in the subjective viewpoint where it's shot to make a viewer feel like they're a person in that action, part of the action. The Blair Witch Project is an example of that little picture there you see in the right-hand side. And that's from the perspective of a person that's in being a part of the action. Camera angles are something you should keep in mind when shooting your videos. A frontal camera angle is pretty much straight on, looking straight on a person. That's often considered to be too flat. A three-quarter camera angle is used more frequently to show sort of some depth and volume, looking at a person's face from the side, sort of toward their ear, between their eye and their ear, if you will. Cuts between these angles should be pretty decisive at greater than 35 degrees, rather than just one little going from frontal to three-quarter, you go from frontal to profile, you'd have a more decisive cut than going from, say, frontal to just the three-quarter view. Avoid shooting frontal angles straight against walls. The picture there at the left-hand side shows this couple talking, and it's straight against a wall. There's not a lot of depth. It's better to use the more perspective as shown there on the right-hand side and shoot the scene from an angle to show some perspective. In terms of vertical camera angles, this is kind of interesting. A high angle is often used by professional videographers to make a character look smaller, younger, weaker, confused, or childlike. The woman in the image at the top, that scene is being shot from a high angle, looking down at her. And again, that can sort of convey these ideas of being younger, or weaker, or confused. A low angle, on the other hand, where you're shooting up at somebody, is used to make the character look bigger or stronger or more intimidating. So keep those angles in mind if you have any need to sort of convey some emotions like that. You can employ these different vertical camera angles. There are some common camera shots to keep in mind. There's a one shot where you're just focusing on one person. There's a two shot as shown in that left-hand picture there at the bottom. And group shots. These are all common sort of videography shots, camera shots. You've also got what they call over-the-shoulder shots, which can be good to show two people who are having a conversation, as shown there on the right-hand side. If you have multiple cameras, you can do what they call, a reverse angle shot, where you've got sort of, here you've got the woman and the man talking. You've got two cameras. As long as the cameras stay on the same side of this sort of line, they're not going to ever shoot each other. You're always going to be shooting with these two people having a conversation. So that's a way you can sort of set up a shot where you've got two cameras filming a conversation. And of course you'd have to merge that video at a later date and bring in the different pieces and piece that together. Another common shot is what they call a reaction shot or a noddy shot. If you have someone that's interviewing another person, then the person asking the questions and doing the interviewing, you would take some pictures of them sort of nodding as someone was answering their questions. You would see this kind of thing a lot on a show like 60 Minutes, where you're doing a lot of interviewing with different people. And there are a number of different camera moves that you can keep in mind. I think some of the articles on the course website give you some more specifics on what these moves do, but here's just a graphic that shows you, there's terms like truck and roll, pan and zoom, boom rather, dolly and tilt. These are all things that, the camera can come in and out. It can be tilted up or down. It can go up and down. A lot of different ways to use the camera and there's a lot of different that can convey a lot of different things. And some of the articles on the website go into a little bit more detail about that. Camera motion, it's important to see to the 3 S's. That is keeping your camera straight, level horizon, keeping it steady. The way to do that is to mount it on a tripod. And if you're going to be moving the camera, say panning side to side, or some of these terms that we just mentioned like dolly, then you can accomplish that movement with a dolly, which is shown there in that picture at the bottom. It looks like they've just rigged up some PVC and put wheels on the bottom of the PVC pipes, which allows the camera to move real smoothly on that tripod. Lighting is another thing to tend to. Too much light can lead to deep shadows on a subject. There's a couple ways around that overshadowing. You can either shade the subject to achieve some even lighting, or you can purchase a reflector, like it's those students there on the bottom right-hand picture are reflecting light back onto the subject using that reflector. Looks like maybe one of those car reflectors, so you don't have to go real high-end with this to sort of achieve good lighting. The three-point lighting model is something to keep in mind. If you have a TV studio in your school, a lot of times you'll have at least 3 different lights which will achieve different effects. The key lighting is the light shown there at the bottom of the graphic. It basically lights the main subject from the head on. The fill lighting, on the other hand, is on the other side. It's used to remove any shadows that are caused by the key light. And then, of course, you've got backlighting, which helps to separate the subject from the background and to add some depth. So a lot of times when you're shooting in a studio, you'll have this 3-point lighting model to keep shadows out, add some depth, and that kind of thing. Use of focus is another aesthetic concept. Sharp focus is the standard, of course, but you can employ a soft focus to convey like a dreamlike or a foggy or surreal effect. Some cameras, advanced cameras, might allow you to shoot in a foggy, soft focus. If not, then you might be able to achieve that with some After Effects in the post-production phase when you're actually editing the video. Use of speed is an aesthetic factor that you can consider. Slowing down your video tends to add drama. If you've got a sport film like Hoosiers there at the top and someone's doing a final second shot, of course you're going to slow down the shot as it goes through the hoop and swooshes and everyone goes back to full speed when everyone stands up and cheers. That can add some drama, of course. Speeding up a film, on the other hand, can convey humor, like a slapstick comedy, if you will. Use of a shaky cam is something that's been employed a lot recently. It's not recommended at length, but you can employ a shaky cam to convey sort of a loss of control, panic, or disorientation. Again, the Blair Witch Project, Cloverfield, these were films that were shot entirely from that sort of subjective view where you're a part of the action. Some common mistakes when shooting videos, there's a number of terms. Fire hosing is where you're moving the camera around randomly from subject to subject to subject in hopes of capturing something editable. There's not really a plan for what you want to shoot. Snap shooting is where your shots are too short to be comprehensible. This is usually done by a novice who's more used to shooting still images. And the solution to that, of course, is to include more lead time to take longer shots so you can edit them appropriately. Headhunting is where you place a subject in the center or the gun side of a camera lens. You don't follow the rule of thirds and put someone's head at that topmost horizontal line, but rather you put them right in the middle. Backlighting is a common mistake. A bright background like sun, snow, or water can often confuse a camera's exposure system so that it adjusts to that bright background, and in turn it leaves your subject very dark. So it's important to tend to backlighting. And motor zooming is where you simply over-zoom without cause. Again, professionals use zooming fairly minimally, so don't zoom in and out, in and out, in and out in your videos. That's a common camera mistake. Upstanding is where you shoot everything from eye level. There's no use of those vertical camera angles where you're either looking down at a subject or up at a subject. And jogging is where you're hand-holding a camera and your moving produces a very shaky effect. And again, unless you're going for that shaky camera effect, it's not a good technique. So that brings us to the end of this presentation on video production aesthetics, and I hope you learned a few things that will help you to produce more professional looking and interesting videos. Thanks.